Good morning, Morai Verabotai. We are continuing on Mesechet Avodah Zarah, and we are on Daf Samech Dalit, Amud Aleph, halfway down the Amud, about 15 lines down, where the line starts with two Lomidi. We are amidst three questions of the Gemara, fascinating questions that they asked in the Beit Midrash, and we're up to the second one. Today's Amud is being learned L'schud Rufa Shel Ma'av Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, and also for Hatzlacha of David Ben Turan, Be'ezrat Hashem, with good news in the difficulty that they are they're in the middle of. You should have a lot of Hatzlacha. Amen. So we have the second question of the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Hadu Riyatvi v'kami ba'yalehu. The same group of people sitting and having the following question. Deme avodat kochavim beyad ovet kochavim mahu. What happens if a goy sells his Avodah Zarah? Now we know what happens if a Jew sells his Avodah Zarah. If a Jew sells his Avodah Zarah, the money becomes like Avodah Zarah, and it's asur ba'ana. That's very simple, straightforward halacha. What happens if a goy sells their Avodah Zarah? Does that become asur ba'ana? Or is it already considered as if the goy nullified his Avodah Zarah? Because otherwise, why is he selling it? And if the goy nullifies his Avodah Zarah, we all know what's the halacha. Goy should be till Avodah Zarah. Shalom. The Avodah Zarah is nullified, and the money would, of course, be mutar ba'ana. So can I use the money from a goy that he sold his Avodah Zarah and cashed out and give it to me? So says the Gemara, Mi tofeset dameha beyad ovet kochavim or lo. The she'ela is whether or not it is tofes dameha. Does it take the status of the money, take after the status of Avodah Zarah, and become asur b'hana or not? So Amar lehu Rab Nachman. Again, Rab Nachman saves the day by answering their question. Mistabra deme avodat kochavim beyad ovet kochavim mutarin. Says the Svara would dictate that the money of Avodah Zarah that the goy sold his idol would be mutar. And it says, I have a fantastic proof. Midanahu te'atu lekameh de Rabba bar Avuham. Have a story, Maaseh Rav, from Rabba bar Avuham, that some Ger Tzedek prospects, some convert prospects, they come to him. Amar lehu, and he tells them, I give you good etzah. Before you go through the process of gerut, zilu zevinu kolmad itlechu. Go sell all the Avodah Zarah that you have. Cash out on the Avodah Zarah that you have. Now, vetu itgayiru. And then afterwards go through the process of gerut. So says the Gemara, my Tama, why is Rabba bar Avuha telling these prospects that they should sell their Avodah Zarah prior to their gerut? Mishum de kasavar, because he holds the me avodat kochavim biyad kochavim mutarin, that if a goy sells his Avodah Zarah, chazak ubaruch, it's mutar. So says the Gemara, wait a second, v'dilma shani hatam, maybe over there is different. The kevan de da'atele igayuri, because once he wants to become a ger tzedek, so of course a prerequisite of becoming a ger tzedek is no Avodah Zarah. That's like the top of the mitzvot that he has to accept, right? Emunah b'Hashem, and the monotheist belief of no Avodah Zarah being there, and hence, of course, he's rejecting his Avodah Zarah, and when he's selling it, that sale is with a strong mindset that this Avodah Zarah is bogus and, worthless and shelo yo'ilu velo yoshiu, as the pasuk says, that they're not going to help. They don't have any reality to them. But if a regular goy wants to sell his, he became rich, so he wants to sell his silver naked fat man and get a gold naked fat man, right? Or liquidate his money and invest in other things, but he is still a devout Buddhist or whatever, as he was before. So who says that in that case, if he sells his Avodah Zarah, that the money is going to be mutar? Or he's still a devout over the Avodah Zarah, he has to pay me his debts. He owes money to me, and he has to pay up. So when I want to get paid, he's gonna go sell his Avodah Zarah and pay me the money. And I know that he just sold his Avodah Zarah to pay the money up. So can I use that money that he's still devout of the Avodah? I don't know if that would be the case, says the Gemara. In the case that he is becoming a ger tzedek, he certainly has in mind to be mebatel the Avodah Zarah. It's getting rid of the entire concept of idol worship. So says the Gemara, vadai batla. In that case, he certainly has nullified the Avodah Zarah in his mind. Ela me'achas. That's not a reason. That story, says the Gemara, that story of Rabba Bar Avua that Rav Nachman wanted to suggest is not a proof. But here, let's try another proof. Yisrael shaya noshe be'ovet kochavim. If a Jew has a debt to cash out from a goy, that means the goy owes money to the Jew. Manam, 100 zuz, umachar avodat kochavim ve'evilo, yain nesech ve'evilo, and the goy sells his idol and he brings the mana, he brings the money for the Jew. Or he sells yain nesech that he had in his house and he brings the cash for the Jew. Mutar. Then the Gemara says, the Braita says, mutar. The Jew could take that money, could use that money, even though that he knows that this money was gotten 5 minutes ago from a sale of an idol that the goy sold. But then the Seifa says, the end of that same Braita says, aval im amarlo. But if the goy tells the Jew, says, look, I don't have cash right now, en li b'mzuman, but I'm going to sell this Avodah Zarah, this getchka, and I'm going to pay you, or I have some yain nesech in my attic, I'm going to sell it and give it to you, that in that case will be asur. Hamten li ad she'emkor avodat kochavim ve'avi lecha yain nesech ve'avi lecha asur. In that case it will be asur. What's the difference? Now, we got our answer so far, right? Our answer is, just like over here, if you know that the goy sold his Avodah Zarah to pay your debt, it's mutar for you to accept the money. The money that you go find, you do business with somebody, and you know that the money comes from their sale of their idol, also will be mutar. That's pretty clear in the Gemara. But now for the curiosity of it, the Gemara says, what's the difference between, you brought the beautiful raya, you brought a good proof, so what's the difference between the beginning and the end of the Braita? The beginning says, if you know that 5 minutes ago he sold his idol to pay you, it's mutar for you to accept the money. But if he told you on the phone beforehand, then he becomes asur. What's the difference? Who cares if I know about it before or I only know about it after? What's the difference? So says the Gemara, Umay shena sefa, umay shena resha. Amar Rav Sheshet. Rav Sheshet says, Sefa mishum davale ki rotze bekiyumo. Sefa, it's asur because the guy is rotze bekiyumo. We spoke about this yesterday. Rotze bekiyumo means, he's like, oh, I want this Avodah Zarah to be intact. He's delivering it from point A to point B to sell it in the market. And God forbid that if it falls and breaks, then it's worthless. And therefore, I want the Avodah Zarah to be there. And that makes it Rotzeh B'Kiyumo. Now, I have that connection with this Avodah Zarah, it becomes a problem. So Gemara says, wait a second. Rotzeh b'kiyumo is only when you have a direct connection with Avodah Zarah. But here in this case, you don't have a direct connection with Avodah Zarah. V'chi rotzeh b'kiyumo ki agavna mi asir. A rotzeh b'kiyumo of indirect nature like this. He owes me the money anyways. I'm not directly benefiting from it. Let the Avodah Zarah be destroyed. He has to still pay me from somewhere else. I don't care about that really. So says the Gemara, v'hatana, and we learned in a Mishnah. The Mishnah says in Kiddushin, Daf Yud Zayin Amud Bet, that if a family, half of it became Gerei Tzedek, so you have two brothers, one of them is still Oved Avodah Zarah, one of them is a Gerei Tzedek, and their father passes away. Now, what do you do with the Yerusha, with the inheritance of this Ger Tzedek? Says the Mishnah, Ger ve'oved kochavim sheyarshu avihen, if they inherit the assets, the state of the father. So says the Ger to his brother, Ger yachol lomar lo, he could tell his brother, Tol ata avodat kochavim, you take this beautiful idol over here, and I take in front of it cash or other assets, right? Instead of just randomly dividing the assets, the estate, you take this and I take the nechasim, because I can't have this, so I'll take other stuff, keneged this. Ve'ani ma'ot, I get money. Tol ata yain nesech, you take all the yain nesech. Ve'ani perot, and I will take the perot. Now, this is very interesting, because can the Jew benefit from yain nesech? Absolutely not. Can the Jew benefit from Avodah Zarah? Absolutely not. But yet the Mishnah says you could benefit indirectly from it, because you say, well, you take this $1,000 worth of money, and I'll take $1,000 cash. So you're indirectly benefiting from the Avodah Zarah being there. I would say that's rotzeh b'kiyumo. Because what happens if the Avodah Zarah just breaks in 2 seconds? Then it's not worth any money. And now my potential $1,000 is also in jeopardy, or half of it in jeopardy, right? So says the Gemara, you see from the Mishnah in Kiddushin Yud Zayin that an indirect rotzeh b'kiyumo, even though that I want it to be there because I'm getting Yerusha, more inheritance in front of that, equivalent of that, still is mutar. So says the Gemara, but if they already divided it, and now the Avodah Zarah is yours, and now you want to go exchange it, then it's already not mutar. In other words, if you had lawyers, you had, and they already divided a truck, 18-wheeler gets to your house with all the estate that they gave to your part, and you open it, and lo and behold, there's a collection of all the Avodah Zarahs of the father, like that he wrote in his Sava'ah to go to you because he was hoping against hope that the guy is going to go back to his Avodah Zarah, then fallen. You can't use that. And now you can't exchange it either, because now it's yours, you'll be directly benefiting from it. So therefore, you cannot do it. So says the Gemara, Amar Rava Bar Ula. Rava Bar Ula says, no. Matnitin ba'avodat kochavim hamitchaleket lefi shvareha. The Mishnah is not a direct raya, because the Mishnah is talking about a golden Avodah Zarah. A golden Avodah Zarah is worth money by every ounce. So what's going to happen? It's going to break. Still is going to be worth all the money, because again, it's pure gold. So therefore, I'm not really rotzeh b'kiyumo. I don't really care about the Avodah Zarah breaking. That doesn't interest me so much. So says the Gemara, that only you could say that by the idol. What are you going to say by yain nesech? Yain nesech doesn't make sense. Well, yain nesech is not, if it breaks and pours, done, right? Fata, gamarnu. Says the Gemara, tenach avodat kochavim yain nesech mai. What's why yain nesech? Mai kalimemar Gemara says, no, I could get around that too. Becheres Hadaryani. You remember we spoke about Hadaryanus, right? His army, they had a patent that they would have this fresh cheres, and they would soak it in wine, so much so that you would just carry this cheres, this clay material with you in your pocket, and whenever you wanted to have some wine, you would just drop this in some water, and the wine you soak it overnight, and in the morning you would have a nice, beautiful, fresh Herzog, fresh winery, and you would be good to go. So that is worth money because it is made to create wine. So even if it breaks you have a big piece of cheres, and now it breaks to two pieces, still same worth, still same thing. It hasn't changed. So therefore, we're talking about the case like that even the yain nesech, he doesn't care if it breaks or not. It doesn't break. But the Gemara says, fine, you don't want it to be broken, but you don't care if it's broken, but you do care about them to be there. You don't want them to be stolen. So still is considered rotzeh b'kiyumo. So at the end of the day, says the Gemara, however you slice this, pun intended, you have a case of yain nesech or avodah zarah that you want it to be there. But you don't want it to be stolen. If the state is looted by people and they steal the avodah zarah, they steal the yain nesech, then you're not going to be getting 50% of what you would have gotten in the money, right? Equivalent of what the brother is taking in avodah zarah and yain nesech. So you're still rotzeh b'kiyumo, and you see from here a proof for our she'ela. Our she'ela originally was what? A goy that sold his avodah zarah to pay my debt, and I want that thing to be there until he sells it to pay me back my money, right? So we have a stira over here, because in one place the Braita says, if the goy owes me $1,000 and he tells me, wait, I'm going to go sell my avodah zarah and pay you back, that is asur. And now you're telling me that if my own brother tells me, well, we have this state, and I could directly tell him, you take the avodah zarah, it's even worse, and I take money in front of it. So how is that not a stira? That's like a blatant stira. It's a blatant contradiction. Not only I could benefit from something that I know was sold to pay me back my debt, I could suggest it. You take the avodah zarah, I'll take $1,000 equivalent of that. And that's mutar. How in the world? You're a problem. So says the Gemara, yes, it is a big problem. It is a direct stira, but you missed one point. And the point you missed is the Yerusha v'ger is completely a different category in halacha. When you talk about inheritance of a ger tzedek, that his father is still a goy, is a complete different topic in halacha. El Amar of Papa, 2 lines up, Yerushat Hager Kamrat. You're talking about the Yerusha, the inheritance of a ger tzedek, Shani Yerushat Hager. The concept, the halachic concept of Yerusha Hager is very different. The Akilu Barabanan Chachamim made a specific, direct leniency in that case, because otherwise it would be almost impractical. You know how difficult it is to ask a person, when someone with a pure heart wants to join Klal Yisrael, and now you got to say, well, you got to forfeit all the things that you have in the Yerusha of your father. You know, because the Gemara says, Ger shenolad ki katan nitkaer ki katan shenolad dami. He's not even really related to his family members, but you got to say that you don't have zchuyot to inherit, and then all this avodah zarah that he has, you don't get. All of those things, was going to push him away in a very serious way. And that's not something that we want. We don't want to block people from being able to, even though that we do not encourage it, we actually discourage people who come to become Ger Tzedek. We say, Ma Ra'ita, what do you're crazy, these people are dechufim, schufim, mesuchavim. The Klal Yisrael are always chased after, they are disgraced, they are downtrodden, they are, again, there's anti-Semitism and all those, we try to convince them not to come. But once they do prove their loyalty, you don't want to push them away too much, and this will be pushing them away too much, so therefore it's a specific leniency built into the system in order not to push away a Ger Tzedek. It's the kula, the akiru barabanan, gezerah shama yachzor lekilkulo. We don't want that to happen, and therefore it's not a stira. In reality, if you have the rotzeh bekiyumo, would be a problem. Any case outside of this, it would be completely asur if you are actually rotzeh bekiyumo. But if you're not rotzeh bekiyumo, then it will be mutar in the payment of Avodah Zarah. So if you know a goy sold his Avodah Zarah and now he wants to pay you back and you didn't know about it, that is mutar. That's the answer to the question of the Gemara. A very interesting tshuva from Rav Moshe Feinstein when it comes to Ger Tzedek and the relationship with parents. Rav Moshe Feinstein was asked this question. He writes a tshuva. He wrote this maybe in 1960s, many years ago, that a Rav asked him in a case that a Ger Tzedek was in his community, and his mother, this is in Chelek Bet of Yoreh De'ah, and his mother was on her deathbed. She was terminally ill, and she wanted to know whether or not she could go visit the mother with her children and be there and so on and so forth. There are certain restrictions made by Chazal. We don't want necessarily a person to be pushed and influenced by family members that are of the Avodah Zarah. But at the same time, here was a question: the mother is ill. What are you gonna do? So Moshe Feinstein has a classic tshuva and says, Avada, for sure, she should be going and visiting the mother because of a number of reasons. Says Moshe Feinstein, first of all, you have this Gemara, right? He brings the Gemara from Kiddush, and he brings it from here, that a ger, if you're too difficult, it's going to be emotionally not sound and not reasonable for them. But Moshe Feinstein says even more than that. He says you have a person that gave birth to you. Where is the hakarat hatov? You have to have hakarat hatov for the mother having brought this person to the world, even though that she may not believe in the same stuff. But you have chiyuv of hakarat hatov. Brings the Rambam. Rambam writes a ger tzedek cannot disrespect their parents. Cannot disrespect their parents. Cannot curse them, cannot disrespect them. And not only that, says Rambam, nohek bo miktzat kavod. You have to respect them somewhat as well, because even though, meaning it's not enough that you should not be disrespecting them, but you have to also be nohek kavod. And Rav Moshe Feinstein says, perhaps this is because the fact that you have hakarat hatov, that they brought you to this world, and without them, you would not be here to become a Jew, to develop and advance your beliefs and find the truth, and so on and so forth. So therefore, says Rav Moshe Feinstein, that would be the halacha. Chacham Badi Yosef also has a very similar tshuva in Chelek Vav of Yechavedah and Siman Samech, that he writes that he was asked a little bit of a different question, whether or not a ger tzedek could daven for the well-being of their parents. If they're not well, if they're sick, can you daven? Can you say kaddish after their things? So you say, there's this whole sugya of lo techonim, and says Chacham Ovadia, for sure you can. And again, he uses multiple reasoning. We are out of time right now. But Bezrat Hashem, maybe we'll discuss this fascinating Shua of Chacham Ovadia in the days to come.
That was a teaser.